Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. I'm Stephanie Fisher. I'm a licensed counselor here in the state of Michigan, and I am owner and operator of In Progress Counseling. I'll often run into it with clients that there's been a very unsavory, very frustrating exchange that they've been a part of. And they're coming in and they're trying to hold it and process it and trying to understand, like, hey, what even happened there? How did that go so sideways? And often, we use defense mechanisms to get out of kind of the heavy labor of trying to sort through, hey, what was that? So we might dismiss the other person. Well, they're just that way, or they're a narcissist. They're a child. And what it does is it eliminates having to hold the complexity of, man, what was that? Why did that go so sideways? Now, one of the dynamics, I walk with a lot of women and I walk with a lot of young adults. One of the dynamics that will often emerge is a client having an over responsibility for the outcome of what happened. They will have a felt sense of, hey, if I had done it differently, it wouldn't have gone that way. Now, I will say we always investigate that. We look at the approach, we look at the motives, we look at what was the client doing that led, kind of cause and effect, what was the sequencing. We work on owning our part. And we look at what else was going on there that wasn't our responsibility. And so often I'll whiteboard it with clients. And let's say the client's name is Jim and I'm Steph. I'll put Steph, there'll be a blank space, and I'll put Jim. And I'll say, Jim, there are 3 columns here we have to look at because this is a relational dynamic. There are 2 of us. There are always 3 things going on. Number 1, what I'm responsible for. Number 2, what you're responsible for. And number 3, the co-responsibility that we have to allow for a productive conversation. So if we're getting into a power struggle, what typically happens is there's that breakdown in the middle where Jim doesn't feel responsible to me or I don't feel responsible to him to have discourse, to have productive conversation. And so all the kind of rules of civility and decorum go out the window. When that happens, we have to be acutely aware that there's a breakdown, and it cannot just be on my part typically. There's a bi-directional breakdown that's happening that we need to be able to talk about. I have this with clients who may be working customer service, where they're very clear on their responsibility, and they run across people that don't feel a lot of responsibility to treat customer service folks with human decency and civility and with kindness. And so they'll come in and they'll be troubleshooting and they'll say, well, I'll just do this, this, and this differently next time. And it's like, look, you were up close to someone that didn't feel a whole lot of responsibility to treat you with dignity and value. I hate that. I'm sorry for that, but that is not your responsibility to fix. You cannot fix that person. There are 2 of you in this dynamic, and when they're not holding up their side, there's breakdown between the 2 of you. That's how it goes. And so then a client will say, well, then I don't want to anxietize about it. I don't want to be frustrated by it. I don't want to be bothered by it. I just want to let it roll off my back. Well, to a degree, we can strengthen your ability to do that. But I don't know about you, the listener, but I know that when someone else doesn't treat me with dignity, basic civility, basic respect, I walk away from that every time a little overwhelmed, a little frustrated, a little confused, a little disoriented. That's just what happens. It's upsetting, it's frustrating, because if we're going to have a productive conversation, if we're going to both hear each other and try to make space for one another, we're going to have to be responsible towards each other. And when that doesn't happen, there's a breakdown in communication. And more directly, there's often a power struggle going on. When the customer is irate with my client that I'm walking alongside, it's they put themselves in a one-up position, and to do that, they're putting my client in a one-down position. There's entitlement, there's you owe me this, I deserve this, you have to fix this, and my client walks away saying, oh, I don't want to be affected by that. It's like every time I'm put in a one-down position where someone's like, gotcha, and puts me in check, I'm going to have a reaction to that. I'm going to feel frustrated, disoriented, confused, overwhelmed. Those are very common things we might experience when we're not having civil, mutually respectful adult discourse. And so proper responsibility, I need to own my part. I need to look at the things that I've done to contribute to the breakdown. I need to look at my tone, my words. Was I being respectful? And I'm not supposed to over assume responsibility for if the other person isn't engaging with basic dignity and civility and being respectful. It's going to break down quite typically between the two of us. So I, Steph, need to figure out, okay, what are my limits, my boundaries? How do I disentangle from that type of conversation? Those are a lot of skills that we work together with clients to build, but we do not accept over responsibility for the irresponsibility of the second party who doesn't want to have a productive conversation. If they need to put someone in a one-down position, they need to have power over, they need to be the winner and the other person has to be the loser. At some point, I'm not responsible for that. I just need to figure out, how do I deal with that? I internally have to grieve that, lament that, vent about it, process it, but I do not assume responsibility for someone else's bad behavior. And I don't sit there anxietizing about, how do I make sure they don't react that way towards me again? Well, perhaps they shouldn't have in the first place. And perhaps part of the grief is saying, man, I really dislike that you chose to speak to me that way. I'm really frustrated that you feel like you have the right to eviscerate me. That's really disappointing. I need to kind of create some space and figure out, what do I want to do about that? How do I want to deal with that reality? I can't fix you. I can't change you. And I'm certainly not accepting responsibility for your lack of basic decency when you engage with me.